am back. This time we are doing, don't worry, no more weird cutout exercises this week. This can be a relaxing one where you can grab your sewing, and I am going to be working on this design that I've had in the works for ages, this lily of the valley that I'm working on. So I'm going to stitch on this, and we're going to go back to that nice little format, relaxing Sunday format for you of a stitch and chat about a topic. And today I want to talk about a topic that I feel is not talked enough about in business or in any creative industries, or to be honest, in any walk of life, and that is the feeling of embarrassment. I want to talk about why I think embarrassment is an absolutely essential part of growth, and give you some reassurance that if you're often feeling embarrassed, that you should be really proud of yourself for feeling like that. So let me explain why I want to talk about this topic. In the last months, in the last year, to be honest, we've been doing a load of stuff that's really a bit out there as a business. Things that either put me front and centre of the business, or products that we're launching which are very different and some people can be quite opinionated on. And one of those is the launch of our Makerspace community. And the idea of kind of bringing our creative community into a virtual environment where people can interact. People have really strong feelings about it. And when I have been speaking to certain people about it, certain kind of people I've met, certain customers, things like that, can sometimes be very, very dismissive about what we're building. And it's led me to have this feeling of I'm embarrassed about what I'm trying to do. I'm embarrassed about, like, who do I think I am to try any of this. And it's been a feeling that, generally, I would say throughout the entire course of having the business, I probably have felt embarrassed on average probably once a week. At the moment, it's more regular. At the moment, I'm having that same feeling of embarrassment, every couple of days. But I think it's a really good thing. I feel really, as much as it's uncomfortable, I think feeling embarrassed is the sign that you're pushing yourself out your comfort zone. Feeling embarrassed is a sign that you're being courageous in the decisions you're making. And I think whether that's similar to me, whether it's sort of in a business environment, or whether that's at work, whether you're kind of putting your head above the parapet and then you're embarrassed for the opinion you gave, you can't have growth, I think, without kind of some sort of decision to take yourself and put your opinions or your thoughts publicly. And in all those scenarios, you are likely at some point to think, oh, why did I say that? What an idiot. And so that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk you through kind of 3 different environments in the business when I have felt kind of intense embarrassment about what I'm doing. And in every single one of those scenarios, how I think it's gone on to actually help us and help grow what we're doing, and help me also just grow as a resilient, confident professional. So that's what we're going to talk about. So the first situation where I think I feel intense embarrassment is situations like this, or my YouTube channel. So let's start with that. So first up is the one which maybe seems the most obvious and most relatable to people, which is the cringe of self-promotion. Now, you can't help, if you followed our social media channels, if you followed the business for more than a year, you can't help but have noticed that over the last 12 months, I have been more present, put myself more front and centre of the business. So be that things like this right now, like starting the YouTube channel where we have a weekly video where I just talk, or be it the journal on our website, which we launched last November, where we've got loads of articles, and they're either pieces that focus on artists I like and have found, or they're more thought kind of provoking pieces, but every single one of them is written by me. Or just on our Instagram, the fact that on my stories I've started doing a lot more quick, I'm going to show you what's arrived in the studio, or I'm going to tell you my new idea I've had, type little videos that go on my stories. Every single one of them is me talking to camera. And please do not think for a second that I do not have that voice going around in my head thinking, who wants to listen to this? Kind of, oh God, is this going to be really boring? I have that every voice that anyone else has going around in my head saying, who do you think you are to be doing this? the first YouTube video we did, in fact, in the summer, and if I go back, I think the one is, you can tell I'm awkward, but it took me about 5 hours to film a 20-minute section. And the whole way through, I kept going back to the team, into the studio, just saying, oh God, please, do I have to do this? And the team would say to me, yes, go back in, it will be fine. But that video took me so long to film, whereas now I'm a bit more comfortable with it all, so probably I would do this video, will be one take, edit, it's much smoother. But I still feel that awkwardness. And however, the results of these things we do to self-promote and put yourself out there as the person who's founded the business and working in this way, the results speak for themselves. Since we launched our YouTube channel in June this year, we've had over 20,000 watch hours. That's the equivalent of someone being sat for more than 2 years just watching the videos straight. I find it it's a mind-boggling amount. People clearly are enjoying the videos, or say our newsletter open rates. Since we started writing more pieces, since I started kind of sharing a bit more of my thoughts around why have we done certain things in writing, our email open rates doubled. Or even on Instagram, just sharing little bits of my stories, our engagement's gone up massively, and we've actually, for the first time in years, been really steadily and sustainably building followers, building engagement. And all that, of course, matters because it grows the business. So this stuff works. This sort of stuff where you're in front of the camera, it works. And I know it works because I love it when other businesses I follow do it. I love to hear people's voices. I love to see what they're thinking. So why does it feel so embarrassing? I think there's a bit of cultural conditioning, particularly in the UK, around the idea of self-promotion. You have the fear of judgment, the worry that you're going to come across as self-centered, the fear that because you've put yourself out there, you're basically just giving people an opportunity to tear you down. It's scary to put yourself out there, particularly in this day and age where people do really like to share their opinions on you as a person. We all kind of do it, and you can become quite Marmite. People love you or hate you. And it's a scary thing to do, and so of course it feels embarrassing to do it. But I think as a first example, this fear of self-promotion one, I would never look at someone else doing the things that I'm doing and think, God, they must be so arrogant. Or I never look at someone else doing it. I just think they're just trying their best to do the best for their business and to share the things that are interesting them. And I always kind of feel like, good for you. So why would I not think the same, that someone is thinking the same for me? And I think that's the first one, where anyone who has to put themselves out there, whatever profession, whatever walk of life you're in, I think there's a reframing we have to do of self-promotion and the idea that we shouldn't be embarrassed by it. And anyone who thinks that's embarrassing, then probably themselves are dealing with their own insecurities more than actually commenting on you. So the second very regular situation in which I feel like I experience a level of embarrassment is around every single new product launch. And I don't think there's kind of an artist makers out there who don't have that slight kind of vulnerable question in their mind when they share something they've made with the world that says in the back of their mind, what if no one likes it? I think we, like I said at the beginning, all seek this level of some kind of validation. And I am human and absolutely no different. So even for something as small as, say, when we have our musicians range, launching new designs into the range, every single time you launch something new and little like that, yes, it's a little less awkward because you've already had some validation that people like this way of stitching, but there's still a slight awkwardness. However, when you go for slightly bigger, wilder things, that's when it starts feeling more awkward, more embarrassing. So say even things like we take our, this year we launched the first time these wooden paint your own Christmas decorations kits. And we'd never done anything like it before. And I had that exact same feeling of, oh gosh, we've just bought absolutely tons of stuff for these. We've made loads of kits. I'm launching them. What if no one likes them? And it's so embarrassing. I'm going to be embarrassed by my team, everything like that. So you feel that. Or things, as I said at the beginning, the one that's really been making me feel very uncomfortable at the moment is the maker space. Uncomfortable in a good way, but because we're running a trial period at the moment and people who signed up for the trial, they don't know what they signed up for when they signed up for the trial. And inevitably, when you create a sort of virtual community like this, it's not going to be for everyone. This isn't a community and an environment for people who want to find their own creative voice, for people who want to be pushed out their comfort zone, for people who want to take their creativity to that next level, which we don't all want to do. Some of us, particularly when it comes to sewing, just want to switch off. And so it's not for them. But when you receive one of those really kind pieces of feedback that says, I've loved being part of it, but I don't think this is right for me, as much as that was always expected, that's why you trial with a mixed range of people so you can find the people it is for, I can't help but feeling, oh God, that's embarrassing, isn't it? That they've gone on this and they didn't like it. Oh God, what an embarrassing thing. I have been feeling that kind of moment of regret a lot. And so I wanted to kind of talk about this scenario of embarrassment because I feel like it goes through this constant cycle. So, and I'd love to know other creatives if you relate to this, but personally, if I'm working creatively, I have this sort of phase that I go through, a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, where it starts with the immense enthusiasm that I'm working on my own, I've just done something and I think, oh my God, that's great, that people are really going to like this. God, struggling to thread my needle here. I'll stop talking whilst I thread. There we go. So I go through that, but that pride of what you've created doesn't last long, because then you have this sort of, you decide you're going to pursue it, you invest in getting all the things through it, and then you have that moment, the fear of making it real, putting it out there in the open. After that then comes the regret. Once you have launched it, the regret, the immediate regret of, why did I do that? I wish I hadn't done that. I wish I'd just stayed in my lane. And then someone sends a kind word. Someone buys what you did, and suddenly you feel validated and vindicated. You think, oh yes, great, fine. And it's this whole emotional cycle we go through time and time again. And there is not one time I have not sent out a launch email and immediately thought, oh God, I just wish I hadn't done any of this. And luckily, so far I've been validated by the response I've had, but it doesn't mean I still don't feel it each time. So why do we put ourselves through this? Why do creatives, why does anyone, to be honest, not even just creatives, like I used to work in financial services, I was an accountant for years, still in finance, you'd have someone in the team who would get up and say, I've got a new idea for how we should do things. They'd be feeling the exact same way as me launching a product now. Why do we do it? And I think it's an amazing sign of bravery and of courage to come up with something new that you're not sure if anyone else is going to be interested in, and have the confidence in yourself to put it out there. I think it's the whole thing is so incredibly brave, and everyone should be sort of applauding themselves for it, not feeling ashamed of it. But in order to do that, I think you need a strong support network around you, people who help you through that period of embarrassment. And so for me, say, that's largely my team, who always are pretty honest in their thoughts on things. But then secondly, it's all of you, it's our community. You know, I have got into the habit now of showing people via my Instagram stories, where I think it's really just my most kind of committed followers kind of look at all my stories. I share new ideas I'm thinking of in my stories, and I get a read on things, and that gives me the confidence that when it does go live, and when that email does go out, this isn't something no one's seen before. I'm absolutely not a fan of the sort of secret, slick, kind of hard launch of a new idea that no one's seen before. I just think it's too emotionally draining as a maker, that I would far rather soft launch, show you what I'm thinking, allow you to kind of get a feel for whether you like it or not, help that build my confidence, so that when I go into it, I sort of already feel like I know that people are going to be happy with this. And that's the way that I cope. I would not want to cope with hard launches where no one's seen anything before, and the first time I show them something, I've already invested loads in it. So that, again, I think if you're working creatively, is the second situation in which you will regularly experience that feeling of embarrassment. So the final scenario is the sting of public visibility. And I have a few examples, but the one that comes to mind really heavily is there's a big literature festival in the UK called Hay Literature Festival, which is up on the sort of England-Wales border. And several years ago, I went and exhibited my products, and it was a terrible weather. It was May, but it was over 6 days. I sat in my little tent in the howling wind and rain, and over 6 days I sold a grand total of £300 worth of stuff. Not even really enough to cover a hotel room for one night of being there. But that wasn't the thing that's awkward. What actually happened over the course of those days is every single day I would have women come up to the stand who would say, oh, these are nice, but I would never sew. You know, it's women's work. It's the kind of, not the work for an intellectual mind. It's the work my mother used to do. I wouldn't do it. And I felt this sort of being sat there in the wind and the rain, not selling anything, feeling a bit talked down to. It was both humbling and quite embarrassing. And when I'd come back to London after my days up there, I felt ashamed, a bit ashamed of what had happened. Or say when you host a workshop with someone else, rather than hosting my own studio, but say someone's approached me and said, hey, can we put a workshop on for you? And some of them sell out immediately, but inevitably some don't. Inevitably some might sell half the tickets or something, and then I'll get that email from the venue owner saying, hey, we haven't sold that many tickets. Can you do some pushes on your social media? Can you do some pushes in your email to get us more people to the event? And I feel embarrassed. I feel embarrassed that the venue owner has to ask. I feel embarrassed that my workshop hasn't sold out. But then I also feel embarrassed that I'm going to have to go out to kind of my audience and make it really, and it's going to be really obvious to them that my workshops haven't sold out. And so the whole thing, you feel like, oh God, that's awkward. I don't want to do that. So it happens regularly with workshops at other places. And then the final scenario that I really feel the sting of that public visibility actually was when we first started putting on some virtual events in the evenings, some evening talks. And we did it with our studio members. The first virtual talk I put on, before I had any idea of how it really works, I think I had 50 people RSVP to say they were going to attend. And as I sat there on the computer waiting for everyone to join, 8 people joined out of 50. And it threw me completely, because I don't know, I just assumed that if 50 people RSVP'd, 50 people would come. But obviously, that in hindsight is absolutely not the case. And it was still a great talk, but I did feel embarrassed that people who were on the call could see that number. I felt embarrassed they would think, oh wow, no one really wanted to come listen to this, did they? And in every single one of those scenarios, it's not me. Like, it's not me that's the problem. And I don't think that's me being in denial saying that. It's external factors that actually drive that. So for one thing, Hay Festival was just totally the wrong setting for us as a business. It's just not the right environment, actually not the right demographic potentially for us. And it wasn't a particularly kind environment, to be honest. And so that kind of one example was not me. In other settings, we have an amazing time, an amazing engagement. That wasn't the right setting, but through it, I learned better what is the right setting. Learned to be a lot more sort of discriminating about where I should be and where we spend our time. Or say with the workshops thing, there can be so many factors around why a workshop doesn't sell out, particularly if it's hosted by someone else. You often don't have control over how they price the workshop. You often don't have control over the kind of time of day the workshop is. All these things that actually mean that potentially their workshops never sell out, but you feel kind of some responsibility to them to make it sell out, when actually, really, they owe the responsibility to you. They're the ones who are meant to be putting it on and filling it up. You're going there to teach. Or even the virtual talk one, there are so many reasons people RSVP to a virtual talk and then don't come, which is largely, they might be based in a totally different time zone. If I'm in Australia, I'm not going to dial in at 3 a.m. to listen to the call, but I've RSVP'd because I want to get the recording after. Or you could be sat on a call and you can start off on a call with 10 people and you could end the call with 5 people. That might be not that 5 people haven't enjoyed it, but it could be that someone's got a screaming child in the background, or someone was only ever able to join for the first 20 minutes and then was going to catch the rest. we immediately jump to the conclusion with all these things that there's something wrong with us and that we're the reason these things aren't happening. But that is not the case. More often than not, it is external factors that drive this feeling. And again, we need to reframe it so we bear in mind that it is those external factors, not something that you've done or you are doing wrong. But if in those moments of awkwardness or embarrassment, say, take for example the virtual talks, that my first one was last November, I've been doing them all year since, and I really enjoy them now, like really enjoy, even if only 8 people join, it's 8 people to have a conversation with in the evening, it's 8 people to talk about who are like-minded. It doesn't matter how many come, what matters is whether we have a good conversation or not. And if I had stopped at that moment, if I'd stopped at that point where I felt embarrassed, I would never get to the good bit. I'd never get to the bit where I start feeling comfortable. The same goes with these YouTube videos. If I had stopped after the first couple, didn't get many views, and I felt awkward, I would never get to this point now today where I can do this. I can feel a little embarrassed, but if someone sends me a kind of comment saying, oh Jesus, I didn't like that video, or you were going on too much, or stop self-promoting, stop promoting your own work, if people send me those, I can shrug it off and think, actually, you know what, you don't need to watch it. I'm not forcing you to watch this. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. If you don't want to, that's fine. There's loads of other stuff you can enjoy. I feel like you start becoming far more resilient if you power through your embarrassment. And I think powering through that embarrassment makes us stronger. So, to summarise, I wanted to talk about this topic because I want, firstly, if you are the sort of person that is regularly feeling embarrassed, I want you to feel proud of yourself for that. I don't want you to feel alone. I think embarrassment is an absolutely essential part of growth. Secondly, I think if you don't relate to any of this, if you don't often feel embarrassed in what you're doing, then I would say step more out your comfort zone. I think if you kind of feel like you're playing it safe, be it with it creatively, if you feel kind of like you've found your voice and you're just working with that, I think if you can, find a situation to put yourself out there where you feel embarrassed and then you can feel that high of, oh, I did that and I'm really proud of myself, because I think that's how, as an individual, you'll grow. So I think look for opportunities in life where you can feel embarrassed. I firmly believe my most embarrassing moments are the ones that have led to the most success for me. And so personally, I've sort of reframed a little, and I think whenever I'm feeling embarrassed, I feel proud, and I think that's a sign that I'm on the right track. So that's the topic. I hope that that made sense and that you sort of relate to those feelings. Actually, I wrote an article about it all for our studio members last week, and it made me feel quite emotional writing it. It's sort of one of those where the words just kind of flowed onto the page, and part of it was because I was feeling so intensely uncomfortable at the time that I needed this message for myself. I needed me to tell myself that it was okay, and actually it was good to be feeling how I was feeling, and that's why I thought I wanted to make it into a video, because I wonder whether other people need to hear that too, whether other people need to hear that if you're feeling embarrassed, you should be super proud of yourself for that. So that's it. Here, I've just been doing stem stitch. I've just got this little bit of the leaf done. So you see, bit of progress every day gets us there in the end. So I will see you next week, which is actually going to be my last video before Christmas. And I will explain everything then, but we're going to be taking a little break for a bit. So yeah, see you next week.